Hello everybody. Now in today's video I am going to be talking about a person that I think we all don't like in the boxing community, and that is Jake Paul. Now we all know that Jake Paul got done with his fight on Mike Tyson back in November, right? And it was a very big upset. Probably because the fight was fucking rigged and staged in advantage of Jake Paul. But we're gonna forget about all that, okay? We're gonna forget about that for a minute, even though it was a completely bullshit fight. Now, a lot of people, including myself, have been wondering, well, who is Jake Paul gonna fight next? And while I don't have the answer to that, I think I have a very good candidate as to who Jake Paul should fight. Now, you're gonna have to hear me out on this one. Now, this person that I'm talking about, I'm not going to say their name right away, but I'm going to tell you some things about them, okay? And this is perfect for Jake Paul, okay? This is the perfect fight for Jake Paul. Jake Paul says that he wants to fight someone who, if he beats them, no one can say anything about it, right? They can't say nothing about it. Now, let me tell you who I think Jake Paul should fight. Now, I'm going to tell you some things about him. He is 38 years old, so he's not in his prime anymore, which is perfect for Jake Paul. We know Jake Paul doesn't want to fight anyone who's actually in their prime, right? We all know that. He is also a former UFC MMA fighter. Not really a boxer, even though he has a few boxing matches. He isn't entirely a boxer. He has more of a larger MMA background than a boxing record, okay? Now, this is also perfect for Jake Paul. He loves fighting older MMA and UFC fighters. He loves it. He loves fighting people like that who aren't entirely in the world of boxing, okay? And this guy is a very, very popular fighter, okay? Very, very popular in his prime and to this day. Now, a lot of you people are probably wondering, well, Gunner, who is it you're talking about? I'm talking about none other than Francis Ngannou, okay? A lot of people are saying, oh, but Gunner, Jake Paul's not going to fight Francis Ngannou. That's just too crazy. Well, let me tell you something. It is actually a bit of a possibility that they could fight. Do you want to know why? It's because of the fact that they are both signed under the same boxing organization, PFL. It is very, very possible that this could be set up. But in all seriousness, though, I don't think that Jake Paul would take that fight. Francis Ngannou, shortly after the Mike Tyson fight, said that he would be down to fight Jake Paul. Do you want to know what Jake Paul said about Francis saying that? He said, oh, he's a clout chaser. Come the fuck on, Jake. Come on. The guy is known as so much of a better fighter than you are. Let's be so real here. Now, this would be a very entertaining match if we could see Jake Paul versus Francis Ngannou. It would be an amazing fight to see. Regardless of who wins that, we would finally be able to see Jake Paul get his shit rocked just a little bit. We all know how hard Francis Ngannou hits, and that's part of the reason that Jake Paul wouldn't fight Francis. It's because Jake Paul knows that even though Francis Ngannou has had less boxing matches than him, he is a significantly better fighter all around. It wouldn't matter if it was an MMA fight or a boxing match. Francis Ngannou would fuck up Jake Paul. It doesn't matter about anything you have to say about Jake Paul. I don't care if you're a Jake Paul glazer. Actually look into Francis Ngannou and try and tell me that Jake Paul would beat Francis Ngannou. I don't care what excuse you come up with, I'm going to laugh in your fucking face after you try and say that Francis Ngannou would lose to Jake Paul, because that would just never fucking happen. It would never fucking happen. Okay? It just wouldn't. It just wouldn't. Okay? And the reason why that Jake Paul will never fight Francis Ngannou is because of the fact that Jake Paul only wants to beat people who he only wants to fight people who he knows he can beat easily. He doesn't want to actually have a challenging match. And it's just a big spit in the face in the world of boxing that he wants to do all that. It really is. Just look at Jake Paul's resume of people who he's fought. He's only fought MMA fighters who are getting older now. He's fought, I believe, what's his name? It was a UFC fighter. I forgot his name. He fought Nate Diaz, who we already know, like, Nate Diaz is significantly lighter than him. He is shorter than Jake. and he has very little boxing experience, and he's been out of his prime for a little bit, and that's no disrespect to Nate Diaz. I love Nate Diaz, an amazing fighter. But that's just the fact of the matter. He just wasn't going to win that match at that current part of his life. And then you have, the only time that Jake Paul has actually fought someone who isn't old, who is a proper boxer and everything else, and who is of similar age to him, he fucking lost. Like, he just fucking lost. Jake Paul, after that, he realized, oh, I'm not fighting anybody who can do this, and that. And Jake Paul is a fucking coward for that. He's not fighting actual boxers other than ones who are fucking significantly old, right? He isn't fighting anyone who is going to give him even somewhat of a challenge. And even the one fighter who could have gave him a challenge, who is older and everything else, was Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson was fucked in that fight because of the fact that if he knocked out Jake Paul at any point in the match, he would have lost anywhere from 20 to 80% of the money he was supposed to make. And you can look into this. I actually made a whole video talking about it. Go and check it out. It was the Was Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson rigged video that I made a while ago. Go check that out. It's a pretty good video. I go into somewhat high detail about that entire situation. But Jake Paul would never fight Francis Ngannou. He just never would. Is it possible for Jake Paul to beat Francis? Sure. Sure it is, right? If he fucked with the contracts and did the exact same thing he did with Mike Tyson. But you want to know the funny thing is? The funny thing is, Francis Ngannou wouldn't accept that. He would not accept that because Francis already has enough money. He can't, kind of bribe him into signing a fucking contract that is like, you can't knock me out, or you're going to lose your money, or, I'll pay you to take a dive and lose purposefully, or go easier on me. Like, Francis Ngannou just wouldn't take that. And let's say that did happen, right? And Francis was like, oh, sure, I'll sign this contract. Do you really think he's going to follow through with that fucking contract? He's not going to. Francis Ngannou would sign that contract, proceed to beat the fuck out of Jake Paul, and let's say Jake Paul tried to sue Francis, or if anybody tried to sue Francis for a contract violation for that fight, then it all gets leaked. Then everybody realizes, oh, Jake Paul's been rigging fights. We can fully confirm this now. Because you can already basically confirm it, right? But you can't 100% guarantee for 100% of a bona fide fact that he is. But we all know it is the most likely thing that he's been rigging fights and everything else. But if that were to happen, where if Francis signed a contract and then just proceeded to beat the absolute brakes off of Jake Paul, then everybody's going to realize, oh, his fights are bullshit. Like, they're just bullshit. Anyways, this is going to be just about it for today's video. I know it's a bit of a shorter video than what I've been making, but I don't want to make this video too long because there isn't a whole lot that I could add to it, you know what I mean, other than what I've already discussed. But anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like on it, and if you want to see more stuff like this in the future, feel free to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment on what you would like to see in the future down below. Anyways, I'll see you guys all later. Bye-bye.